Viewers, let's begin with the headlines. It's been a very, very busy day. It's day 5 of the war, which is not ending anytime soon. But here are the headlines as we begin. The hard facts tonight. The US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth confirms American submarine strike on Iranian naval ship near Sri Lankan coast, says Iran mistakenly thought its naval vessel could be safe in international waters. Viewers, those international waters are very close to the Indian coast. It's certainly in India's backyard. The other big headline, US Department of War releases pictures capturing the moment Iris Dana's hull was blown apart. Look at those pictures, viewers. They are sensational. Iran maintains a stranglehold over the oil artery of the world. The Strait of Hormuz closure pushes oil prices to its highest since July 2024. The world braces for inflation. And viewers, Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Saar speaks exclusively to CNN News18, confirms that the endgame for the West Asia war is regime change in Iran, says it could be a very long war if the aims are not met. And there's a big split in the EU, viewers. That's the next big story. Spanish Prime Minister Sanchez stands his ground despite Trump's threat of cutting off trade, says can't allow some irresponsible leader to lead the world into another world war. Macron also backs Sanchez. Viewers, it's all happening tonight, but we are going to stay close to home. Too close for comfort, viewers. Too close for comfort. And let's go to the first and the big story of the night. The war in West Asia has washed up at India's doorstep virtually. An American submarine has torpedoed and sunk the Iranian frigate Iris Dana in the Indian Ocean off Sri Lanka's southern coast. Look at those pictures. These waters fall squarely within India's primary area of maritime interest. I am not saying that they were within India's maritime boundary, but certainly very close, viewers. Certainly very close. Some people would say the edge of India's maritime boundary. The US Navy submarine, and the details are only now being released at around 7 o'clock in the evening, sank an Iranian frigate off the southern coast of Sri Lanka in the Indian Ocean. The Iranian vessel has been identified as Iris Dana, a guided missile frigate of the Iranian Navy. In fact, it was one of the only vessels that had a vertical missile delivery system. The warship was sunk by a torpedo fired from the American submarine, striking the ship in international waters. So this was clearly a covert operation. The Sri Lankan authorities reported that 32 crew members were rescued. Others are missing or presumed dead, and that could be anywhere above 130 to 140. The strike was part of the broader US military operations targeting Iranian military capabilities, including naval assets. That's what Washington is saying. Washington is calling it a decisive naval action. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is openly boasting about the torpedo strike. Team Donald Trump is framing it as some kind of blow to Tehran. Hegseth, of course, viewers, has even lied on record. He says this is the only instance after World War II where a torpedo has sunk a frigate, a warship. No, viewers, there have been 4 such instances. He said in a significant naval action, an American submarine sank an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Looks like POTUS got Iran twice. Listen in.
We sunk their prize ship, the Submarine. Looks like POTUS got him twice. In the Indian Ocean, and we'll play it on the screen there, an American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II.
But here's the central question. Was India taken into confidence, viewers? The Indian Ocean region is not a distant theatre. It is India's strategic backyard, the space where New Delhi projects power, builds partnerships, and asserts primacy as a net security provider. The Indian Navy runs anti-piracy patrols to humanitarian missions. India has long treated these waters as its own sphere of influence. And you can see where this action has taken place. The sunk vessel Iris Dana, a guided missile frigate of the Iranian Navy, had recently participated in an Indian naval exercise. Never forget that. Just about 2 weeks ago, 15 days ago. It was part of an Indian naval exercise, viewers, where even India's president was in attendance. That makes the optics sharper. A warship that sailed alongside Indian vessels is now resting on the seabed, hit by an American torpedo in international waters not far from India's coastline. India and the United States describe each other as natural, trusted, and strategic allies. Between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Washington, there is deepening military interoperability and intelligence sharing, which raises the issue of courtesy and sovereignty, or at least obligation. Did Washington inform New Delhi before bringing a live torpedo engagement into the Indian Ocean? Or did America assume it has a free run in India's maritime backyard? And if so, what made it assume so, viewers? Does it think it can walk all over us in our own backyard? I'm not talking about our boundaries. This was beyond our maritime boundaries. I concede the point, but it is still in our sphere of influence. Imagine, viewers, an Indian naval ship, a submarine, going into the Caribbean islands or into, viewers, the Gulf of Mexico and sinking a ship that belongs to an adversary of ours because we want to take decisive action and teach someone a lesson without informing the United States. Do you think that would have gone down well with the US? I don't think so, viewers. It wouldn't have. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating. But let's open this up. Let's ask some fundamental questions tonight. I want to first bring in Tom Cooper and just ask him something about how this operation could have been conducted. A submarine comes in, an Iranian frigate is there, it doesn't see the submarine. It all happens quickly. You can see those pictures. Would this have been visible to Indian radars, for example? Would Indian Coast Guard have known about this? How would we have, is this even detectable?
Well, these are excellent questions, and there is a number of very good answers if you ask me. Firstly, you must be 100% sure that this or another US Navy attack submarine, nuclear-powered attack submarine, was tracking the exercise in which this ship was taking part. It means it was all the time somewhere around, silently lurking, listening to its sonar, perhaps sometimes watching with its periscope, and checking what is going on. And that ever since this exercise was over, the same or another US Navy submarine was tracking the movement of the Iranian warship. So, that with help of sonar. Any of attack nuclear powered submarines can move faster than this frigate.
Right.
So it probably moved down the coast of Sri Lanka, waited for into a waiting position, and then when it was practical, has intercepted it and sunk it as soon as it was outside of any kind of territorial waters. So this is all done with help of sonar. But in this case, I guess the alertness on the Iranian warship was also low because they were still quite close to the coast, and therefore they were never detected. Why am I gauging this or concluding this? You can see that the entire sequence of attack, almost the entire sequence of attack, has been captured on video with help of the periscope. And there is a camera mounted in the periscope of the submarine. So this means that the submarine skipper of the submarine was not concerned about a possible counterattack from the Iranian Navy warship. What's more...
So you're saying that this periscope has risen above the waterline?
Yes.
And that this particular ship would not have seen that?
Well, the attack, I guess that it took place by night. Firstly. Secondly, there was very slim chance to detect the periscope by radar, for example, or to see it visually. You cannot, even if everybody was perfectly on alert, it is extremely hard to be constantly on alert well enough. In order
And
to
where would
detect
this submarine have come from? Would it have come around the Cape of Africa, up, and done this? Because remember, there was an American ship that was supposed to take part in the naval exercise, but it didn't, because it didn't want to be seen in a situation where it is parked next to an Iranian ship just before a war. So optically it wouldn't have looked good, so they pulled out. But obviously they had it out for this particular ship.
Probably from the Pacific.
From the Pacific.
But I'm not sure it
might have come this way, you mean?
Yes, from the east. I doubt that this submarine has sorted out specifically for this mission. It was simply sent over. At the time it was not yet certain whether they are going to attack or not. So it was simply sent to monitor the Indian naval exercise, because this is what the US Navy is all the time working, and the submarine is a perfect tool to do so. Why? Because they are studying the tactics of the Indian Navy.
Okay, let me bring in General Dhillon. General Dhillon, what do you make of this? Brahmachalani is also here with us. Look, I don't want to overblow this issue, but it does appear to me, sir, and maybe to other Indians, that we should have at least been tipped off. Anyhow, I'll come to that part, but what do you make of this? Why do you think this was done? Was this, once again, one of those, to use a pun, showboating maneuvers, to show off to the world that we are great, and this is sort of a misadventure or misadventurism?
Rahul, good evening, and good evening to the fellow panelists and all your viewers. Rahul, first of all, I want to clarify a few aspects which are rules or terms of engagement, or which are the norms for the benefit of the viewers, and then we can discuss the you can say play out as it happened. First of all, the southern tip of Sri Lanka is an international shipping lane where the merchant ships traverse from east to west, being the shortest route, going from southern tip of South Africa to Malacca Strait, so to say. So this is generally in that international shipping lane where merchant ships also ply around, where the ship was hit. Secondly, the territorial waters of any country run 12 miles from the coast of that country all along, which is roughly about 20 kilometers. So anything within the territorial water without that country's knowledge is generally not a convention. Nobody will do it. And even if the submarine enters those 20 kilometers or 12 miles, as per the signatories of the UNCLOS, there's a United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. So different countries sign this with different other countries. Like for India, the UNCLOS law is, if any submarine is within 12 miles, that is our territorial water, it has to be on surface. And you cannot enter our territorial water without our intimation. So it is different for different countries. So this is international waters. These are not territorial waters where this ship was sunk. And secondly, when Iran and America are at war, when two nations are at war, like they say, everything is fair in love and war, and might is right. So technically speaking, legally speaking, as per the laws and conventions, hitting an enemy warship in the international waters when you are at war is not banned, or it is not unethical. The point which you're making is Americans knew the movement of this ship because it was coming back from an international naval exercise. So everyone in that naval exercise would be aware of all the ships which are participating, and they would also be aware which all is leaving on which dates. So as Mr. Cooper was saying, probably this ship was being tracked. The submarine moving faster came ahead and came to the point which I said it's the shortest shipping lane, came to the point where they were very sure that this ship will cross from here, being the shortest route. And they laid in ambush, in typical military terms. They lied there in ambush, and when the ship came in, the sonar was observed, and then they shot the torpedo and shot this video with the periscope which was jetting out of the water, as has already been explained. And this is not the first time, as has been told by the Secretary in America after Second World War. Often I remember HMSs Her Majesty's submarine ship, Conqueror, had sunk General Belgrano of Argentina during Falklands War. One incident straight away comes to mind, and I'm sure they are more like Rahul was saying this. So these are the few things which I thought before we start the discussion, I put it straight as per my understanding of the UNCLOS and how the navies behave on the sea.
Okay. Mr. Brahmachaleni, what do you make of this? Is it an exaggeration to say that the US is now beginning to take India for granted in the Indian Ocean on the basis of this?
This strike happened in India's maritime backyard. This warship was returning from India's multilateral Milan 26 naval exercise at Visakhapatnam. That exercise ended just 4 days ago, and the ship only left Visakhapatnam after February 28th. So the ship was being tracked by the Americans. They probably did not take India into confidence, very likely because there was no role for the Indian Navy in the rescue operation. It was left to the small Sri Lankan Navy to mount rescue after receiving a distress signal. International waters, of course, they only guarantee freedom of navigation, not immunity from attack during wartime, even in an undeclared war of the type that the US has mounted against Iran. But the laws of war, by that I mean the Geneva Conventions, impose a clear obligation. Once a ship is sinking, the attacking party must, as far as military circumstances permit, search for survivors. This is the obligation, that even after you attack a warship and the warship is burning or sinking, you have to search for survivors. But the US submarine instead departed the area, leaving it to the small Sri Lankan Navy to look for survivors. As a result, 148 Iranian sailors are missing and presumed dead. And I think the larger question is this, that first, of course, it's clear that not only is this a dramatic escalation of the war, but more importantly, it signals a widening American campaign to dismantle Iran's naval capabilities. It goes to show that this war was never about.
I'm actually just trying to understand whether there was an obligation. I'm not saying that it was a requirement, it was a precondition, but an obligation to share this information with India. And whether at the end of it, by not doing so, are we seeing our sovereignty to some extent being eroded in what you have described as India's maritime backwater? That's my fundamental concern.
Rahul, the very fact that the US attacked and sunk a warship that had just participated in an Indian multilateral naval exercise, that by itself was an unfriendly act. Whichever way you look at it, attacking a ship, a naval ship, that had participated in Milan 26 sent a very clear signal to India that we don't care about your concerns, that we will, as Hegseth said, we will pursue this war without, quote unquote, he said, without mercy. That means even breaching international norms and laws. They've already breached international norms and laws repeatedly, but here they left a sinking warship, allowing so many of the sailors to die, to drown. They left the scene in violation of the Geneva Conventions. And I think there's a message both for New Delhi as well as a message to the international community that they don't care about international laws.
Okay, so let me bring in General Saab on this. General Saab, I have to ask you this. Had, for example, Pakistan done something like this with, let's say, an Afghan ship, just, the fact that they're right now at war with each other or whatever it is. Had an Afghan ship come for an Indian military training exercise and the Pakistani ship or submarine tracked it and sank it, it well might have been beyond India's territorial boundary. How do you think India would have reacted to that? Or vice versa? Had India entered, let's say, the territorial waters, as I said, of Pakistan or even the United States or another third country like China, or if the United States had done that in the Chinese sphere of influence in the South China Sea, how do you think Beijing would have reacted?
Rahul, this ship taking part in an Indian exercise, where India was coordinating the exercise, is one part. But after the exercise is over and the ship has moved back to its country and it is on its way back, that part that it participated in an Indian exercise technically cannot be held after that. Once it has left, like in the army we say, jab movement order de ke chala diya hai banda, then he is on the payroll of the receiving company or receiving organization. Here, once it has left our exercise area, I don't think America was duty bound or law bound to inform Indians, since we are not partners in this war.
I have not ever said that it was law bound.
I'm just making a point.
Is there an obligation? Being a trusted partner and an ally.
That's what I'm saying. As the operation has taken place, it was an ambush. In ambush, most important thing is surprise. And since we are not a partner in this war, they would have thought informing India might lose our surprise or they might inform or something like that. I'm not saying anything, but what I'm saying is, as per the law, on the high seas, in the international waters.
No, I'm not talking about law. There has been no breach of law as far as. No, one second. No, there has been a breach, according to Mr. Chileni, on the part of the American Navy when it came to an act of humanitarian aid, because it is obliged under the Geneva Conventions. That's what Mr. Chileni is telling us. But that is separate. I'm not talking about all of those technicalities. I'm only looking at it from a proud and patriotic Indian's point of view. If someone off my coast is doing something, I need to either know, I should have been alert, I should have blown a whistle, or I should have been informed. I don't know. Am I being touchy?
Rahul, at one point.
Okay, well, one second. Mr. Chileni, very quickly before I bring back General and move on. Yeah.
You know, we're talking about international waters. Let's be clear on one thing, that this ship was torpedoed within Sri Lanka's exclusive economic zone. It happened within Sri Lanka's EEZ.
Yeah.
And under international law, exclusive economic zones come with certain rights, and taking action within Sri Lanka's exclusive economic zone itself was something exceptional. This warship transited through India's exclusive economic zone before it entered Sri Lanka's exclusive economic zone. This warship has not gone anywhere. It was returning from India through India's exclusive economic zone and entered Sri Lanka's exclusive economic zone when it was targeted and sunk.
Okay. Very quickly, General Saab, before I move on. Yes, you wanted to make a point.
Yeah. Rahul, see, the territorial water is something which is absolutely untouchable. Exclusive economic zone, which extends right up to 200 kilometers, is only for exploitation from economic point of view. That means no other country can come and do fishing in that 200 kilometers from Indian coast. That exclusive economic zone or drilling of, oil exploration and all, that is only for India.
Okay.
But otherwise, that exclusive economic zone, from the point of view of this incident, falls within the international waters where they can take any action against an enemy or the hostile country. Right. Now, quick point about rescue mission as per Geneva Convention. Mr. Chilani is very right, as per my understanding also. But a submarine has a very little capability and capacity for rescue. Even if they wanted to, which they did not, which is absolutely understandable and agreed. I agree with Chilani. But even if they wanted to and they had come on surface for rescue,
that is fair enough. I
Least they
understand.
could have done was,
Yes, very
least
quickly,
they could
Tom
have done
Cooper.
was they should have informed the Sri Lankan army and
They should have.
Sri Lankan Navy
Yeah.
and Indian Navy immediately after the strike.
Because we
so
don't
that
know
the
if they
rescue
did.
Could have been earlier.
We don't know if they did. That's the one, because Indians haven't put out a statement. Very quickly, Mr. Cooper, before I move on.
Just a short observation. US Navy skippers of nuclear-powered attack submarines are extremely aggressive. And there are several of them who have been highly decorated for driving, for sailing their vessels straight into the ports of the enemies. For example, during the Cold War and ever since. That means there are skippers who have sailed their submarines, for example, into the port of Murmansk or into the port of Vladivostok in Russia. So for them, territorial waters,
All of these are
as long as they are not
technicalities.
detected, they don't care.
Okay, well, viewers, I'm going to leave it to you to judge. We've heard all the views. I'll leave it to you to judge whether the US has ridden roughshod of Indian sensitivities or not.